everybody. It is Wednesday, November 19th, about 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here in East Tennessee. So, a lot's been happening since my last video. So, we know that the shutdown is over, and the Epstein files, they voted to release them, both the House and the Senate, it looks like on a unanimous vote. That's where we're at. So I wanted to talk about a couple things. So I don't know if you've been following Barris and Mark Mitchell on War Room, and they're sounding the warning bell, especially after the election. Okay, that these younger voters, these Trump-only type voters, middle class, younger, young Hispanics and males, they are basically, I'm not saying they're going Democrat, but they're dropping. I mean, Barris has an 8% generic. I believe something 47 and change to 39. Has the Republicans under 40. They did a video of their Senate map already. I pretty much agree with most of what they said in that that pod that they live streamed that they did the other day on Monday. So I urge people to check that out to understand what is going on. Okay. And it seems like to me, basically, to sum it up, is that these voters that they were picking up, 22, 23, 24, going towards Trump, it's those voters are leaving. All right. So, and we know Democrats are motivated to vote. So that's where we're at. So when you focus that and you say a lot of things have to change. All right. So we got some decent news. Trade deficit was 59 billion, so it came down a little bit. That's good. That's a result of tariffs and so forth. And remember, the whole point of the tariffs and why I support them is to reindustrialize. Because the whole reason I think it's important to reindustrialize is because of our financial situation. With central banks hoarding gold, which is now at $4,100 an ounce. Okay, and less transactions and certain stuff like China and Russia trading in Chinese yuan and all that. I believe gradually we're going. So people say, oh, what currency is going to replace the dollar as the reserve prime currency? Well, maybe not. Maybe it's just gold, and then they're going to have separate systems set up, which I believe BRICS is supposed to unleash it sometime next year or in 27. That'll facilitate, and that'll decrease the need for dollars, and with our huge deficits, we'll be there. So what's been fueling what's going on is that, from what I understand the polling, and I also know because that's how I felt on certain things, a lot of things started with the Epstein. And I know it's being framed as the Democrats are going to use it. Of course, Democrats are going to use anything against Trump. But one of the aspect of the Trump coalition voters, or some of the Trump coalition voters, was the sense of anti-establishment. Distrust in institutions, whether it's their experience from COVID, their experience between the relationship between big pharma and the regulatory agencies, hence the Maha movement, okay, distrust in other institutions. So even if there's no smoking gun there when it comes to the Epstein files, people want transparency. We want to trust you. They don't trust the government intelligence community. Why would you, with the Russia hoax and everything that what's going on, and the wars into Iraq and Iran with Iraq and Afghanistan with faulty intelligence, also being lied to for years? Okay, so you sow distrust. Now there's also a window, okay, that you have, especially in that first year, right? Because people in the congressmen in the second year switch to campaign mode. As a matter of fact, Steve Scalise unveiled the calendar. I think they're in session for at most 115 days for next year. What are they going to get done? Nothing. And no one's going to pass a controversial vote because we have such a small majority. And then you either lose the Chip Roys on the right, and then you lose the Mike Lawlers on the left of the party, and there's no wiggle room. So you're not getting anything done. Then what also happened in the summer, right? Okay, so you had the whole Israeli conflict, whatever, which seemed distracting, and then we bombed Iran. Okay, so people are basically not, they feel like the opportunity was lost to make certain changes. And some of the things, what do these people wanted? They wanted to break up these institutions, break down the administrative state, go after corporations, go after with antitrust laws and monopolies, and open it up. I think a lot of them do like the tariffs, even if there is certain prices in certain areas that did go up, at least in the short term, and they fluctuated a lot because he was trying to get deals out of it. But I think that's to do with that, like I said just before, reindustrialization. But that's going to take time, That's the long term thing. But what do you got to do? You got to show people that you're doing more on the domestic front to show that you are populist and nationalist. So the Laura Ingraham interview with 600 million, sorry, 600,000 visas to Chinese or wherever overseas. Mark Mitchell went on with a voter that he interviewed and read the transcript. This guy says, I was laid off in February because of an H1B visa. He can't find a job. He applied for 1,000 jobs. And that's what they're hearing out in the polling. Now, they understand it was Biden, and they realize it because Biden had that Democrat, left-leaning, corporatist type Democrat that didn't care. And the assets got inflated under him with the inflation and the huge spending. But we're still a $1.8 trillion debt, and we're still going to have these H-1B visas. Are you kidding me? And then the argument, I love this one, the argument that it'll hurt our universities. Who cares? They're left-wing institutions anyway. And if you have all these professors that are out, well, let them train people how to work in these factories. If we can train Ukrainian pilots to fly an F-16 in less than a year, we can train people and Americans here to build these factories and so forth. All right? You just need a few experienced guys to train these people on the job, okay, and to get it running, okay? You don't need 600,000. Look how much in wartime we shifted the people to work in these military factories quickly. You can get this done. Don't tell me you need it. See, that's the point. It looks like you're in bed with the corporations, hanging around with Bill Gates and Tim Cook and the head of Pfizer. That does not show the populist, anti-establishment things that you will go. Now, there's good things going on. The ICE raids and getting illegal immigrants out, that is important. Rule of law. Bring up wages. I'm all about that. The tariffs, as I said. Okay. Other good things on the economic front. Getting these deregulations down and energy going. Because cheap energy... because everybody needs it. You make that baseline cheaper, prices come down for everybody eventually. So, those are good things. But you can't be sitting there going around, because optics is everything here. Optics is everything, and that's how people feel. Okay? If the optics were good and you were doing things... Even if it's little things that impact that get news, then people are more logical and go say, okay, some of these long-term things will take a little bit, and I get that. But in the meantime, he's doing these short things. And he's not sending weapons to Ukraine still. And he's not getting huge and blowing up boats in the Caribbean and putting 14% of our naval assets, okay, 14% of our naval assets off the coast of Venezuela, who are not even in a top drug running country. So, it's just that, and that anti-war element of the Trump coalition. So it's going there. But the economic situation isn't good. So you take this polling now, if economics goes south, forget it. You're going to have a wipeout. Republicans will get wiped out. All right? So you need to change course here. You need to unleash the antitrust. You need to reverse these H-1B visas, okay? These are the kind of things that people be like, okay, he's trying to do something in the short term and the immediate impact that we could have. But we also got, you got some good numbers. We're getting some bad numbers, all right? Construction employment numbers keep falling. Manufacturing employment numbers. Now, then you have the AI portion of that. Now, I think, the Fed has announced, the New York Fed for the next quarter, has increased their quarter outlook to 4.2%. But if only a portion of our economy is being driven and our stock market is being driven by AI, that's not helping anybody. And that's what's going to matter. We're going populist one way or another. It's either Bannon's or Mamdani's. Because these people, they can't wait. Repos are going up, repossessions are going up, defaults are up pretty high, auto defaults, okay? Credit card debt is still high, and wages are not keeping up with inflation. Now, inflation has come down a bit. Inflation just should be what it is, normally, a 2 to 3 range. That's a normal inflation rate, okay? But people are still hurting from the debt they accumulated during the Biden years, okay? So we've kind of stopped it. Okay, great. And because the Republican Congress isn't doing anything, any of this stuff is really not codified into law, like the immigration stuff and things like that. They can just, because it's all being done by executive order. So the next Democrat will come in and just do that. That's why it's important Republicans get on the message, do the right things, abandon their corporatist nonsense, embrace these policies, and hopefully minimize the 26 elections. But I don't think that's where we're going. So to give you ideas of what we got to a little bit worry about here is here. This is from Zero Edge, top JP Morgan trader. Repo stress has been main reason for the market reversal and what happens next. Okay, that's to do with institutions borrowing money from each other overnight. Okay, if you don't know that. So this is a little in depth on that. Okay. TGCR equals repo borrowing cost using good collateral. IOR, interest rate the Fed pays banks for parking Federal Reserve balances. Under normal conditions, repo rates equal IOR. Banks are willing to lend their cash. Liquidity flows smoothly. Okay, but when good collateral rate, IOR, is greater than IOR, banks back away from lending. Funding markets tighten. Now, keep in mind, Zero Hedge had an article this morning. You go look it up. Basically, the red flags that were similar to going into the, what do you call it? The Great Recession, the financial crisis. This means Treasury dealers struggle to finance their inventory. Hedge funds using leverage, basis trades, get pressured. Equities and crypto feel the downstream effects. Liquidity disappears faster than prices can adjust. That's the problem. That's one of the things that led to the financial crisis. It's one of the earliest indicators of market stress. Okay, see what's going on? Yeah, we're getting easy access to energy. Remember, the wage rates in Trump one term really didn't get kicking until 18 into 19. That's why they loved COVID to use it, because they weren't going to beat him because of the economy, because it takes time to do those things, especially the longer term things like manufacturing. But we still have the fundamental problems left over from the Biden administration. And you can even say going back to the financial crisis, when we had cheap money, the government kept printing money, but then inflation hit. And then when inflation hit, they had to raise rates. So now we're refinancing this debt at higher. Now, the tariffs are bringing in revenue to help, and we wiped out some stuff in the BBB, like Green New Deal type stuff, but not nearly enough. We needed to come down to pre-COVID levels, and we shouldn't have got rid of, increased that SALT deduction. Yeah, it's a great idea. Give tax increases to progressives in blue states. That was a great way to go. But the BBB had to be passed because the American people could not handle the taxes going back to 2016 levels, right? The 12%, the 12% going back up to 15, the 22 to 25, and then the standard deduction going from 30 back down to 15, and the child tax credit going from 2,000 back to 1,000. That would have been horrible after the inflation the majority of Americans felt. So it had to be passed. Okay, but it shows you where the Republican Party is. They're interested in their things. Now I understand Trump has to meet with these CEOs because they're the ones going to be investing the money, and they're the ones bringing it back and trying to bring it back. And they'll do what they'll have to do to survive Trump. Not necessarily they believe in it, but I mean, if you're going to commit to a factory and it's coming and you're putting the money in there and you bought the equipment, you're going to go through with it. So that's the point. But what if something bad happens between now and then? Because there are some strange, there are some bad signs here. Okay? And then throw in the AI situation. Okay? Robert Bonds reposted Don Johnson. When the entire economy is built on a faux technology, unnecessary data centers, and risky loans, yes, there's significant risks. That's it. What did Charlie Kirk call it? A renter's economy? A credit and renter's economy? Well, that's what we got. Because we deindustrialized. These are the fundamental changes. And these are the things I think Trump's trying to get to. Energy independence, whatever. That's another thing. Importing Argentine beef. Well, the problem is 4 beef companies control 85% of the meatpacking industry. They control price. National Beef alone had a $4.9 billion profit. I just went into the food store. I swear to God, last Christmas I deep fried a New York strip roast. I think I paid $45 for it. It was $73 for 5 pounds. And that was with my little Food City value card. It's like, what? My God. But turkey's come down. I got a nice 17-pound turkey for about $32, all said and done. So that's good. And that's what's driving it down. I don't know the specifics of turkey versus whatever. But This AI, it's driving those stocks. Your smaller cap companies that make stuff we need and whatever, that the S&P is more of an indicator of your true health of the economy, because all this AI stuff is investment into a specific thing. And it's a technology that's going to take away American jobs. So importing 600,000 people, hey, Trump, I have an idea. The people that are going to lose their job, like the 600 people from Meta who were laid off from their AI research department, they can train the people to work in the factories. How about that? This is insane. And these are easy, quick fixes the administration can do, and could show the American working class and the members of his coalition who are leaving that he's trying to do something. Cernovich. What is the steel man case for the following two lines, often repeated by the same people in big tech? AI is going to automate many millions of jobs out of existence. America must bring in infinite H1's. Is there any article laying out this logic in a coherent way? There isn't. There freaking is not. This is home run stuff. And people know this. They read an article because they're looking for a job because they were laid off, or they're on their lunch break of another job, looking for a better one, or whatever it may be, and they're reading an article, how AI is going to take jobs. Then, Trump says we need 600,000 Chinese people to make missiles. Okay. They hear Meta's laying off those people, and then we're saying, hey, you need these people from China to train them. It's my point. There's no logic to this, and Trump should know better. The problem is the swampy Susie Wiles, corporatist Republicans in the administration who do not believe in MAGA, that are just plainly loyal to Trump, okay, convince him otherwise to do this, okay, and abandon the message that won that great election in 2024. But even forget about the election. This is what needs to be done, okay? So we're getting unskilled people out that are here illegally from Charlotte, North Carolina, but we're going to bring in other people to displace other people's jobs as well. So now more middle class and working class people who don't have high skills have their wages loaned by these illegal immigrants. You're trying to fix that problem, but at the same time you create another one where people who do have skills are going to get replaced by Americans, okay, who definitely do not want to do those unskilled workers, or maybe too old now, or not even shaped to do it, and no experience at welding and landscaping and painting and construction. They're going to have to do that work, but it's okay. We got these 600,000 Chinese to come in here. How about this? Let's take the university professors that go out of work, okay, because the Chinese government isn't paying 600,000 tuitions. That'll make the universities more competitive, and maybe prices will come down, especially when you stop subsidizing them, okay, with federal tax monies in the universities. It'll also get rid of some of this left woke nonsense that's coming out and getting out of them, and put those professors to help train them, right? Or those people that, like I said earlier, got laid off by Meta this morning, okay? But you see the pattern here? Eric Schmidt, great state of Missouri, show me state. America first means Americans first. Young Americans are struggling. First-time homebuyer is 40 years old. Let me repeat that. First-time homebuyer is 40 years old. Young Americans are struggling. They shouldn't have to compete against a flood of cheap foreign labor, even skilled labor. It's time to overhaul or end the optional practical training program that prioritizes foreigners over American students and workers. Correct. There's another example. And then highlight this. And you say, listen, look what we're doing in Maha, trying to get healthy, trying to figure out these true problems to the American people. We're trying to go after the drugs that are hurting the American people. And you highlight this. And now you add in this. And then you pull out of Ukraine and pull the plug there. These are the things that can get back the people you're losing. Okay? And this is a great way to start one of these stupid programs, okay, that do that. Let me tell you something. It is we, the people. Our Constitution guarantees the rights that are given to us and guaranteed to us by God. Not corporations' rights, not institutions' rights, not the bureaucracy's rights, but individual American citizens. Okay? What is an economy for if not to feed yourself, have growth, opportunity, give yourself a good family? It is not driven purely by corporate profits. 1% The top 1% now own more wealth than the entire middle class. 3.5 million own more money than 250 million. Stats like that lead to bad things in the future. And it is all because of asset inflation. Not because our economy grew. Concentrated of wealth, the lowering purchase parity of the dollar, allowing stocks to float up, the assets they have, the assets of their house, their assets of their stock portfolios. And meanwhile, they can't even get a car loan because they can't afford 7% on a car that is now $15,000 more than it was 6 years ago. And they can't get to put together a down payment to buy a freaking house. And then Republicans want to take away the FHA loans, where you could put down 3% on a $180,000 house, which is going to be lower than their rent. You take that away, then they have to save up $35,000 when the average household income in the United States is $75,000. That's all right. Just, keep bringing in the cheap labor to increase the profit margins, of Disney and Nvidia and Meta. That's good. You want to see what redistribution of wealth really looks like? Okay? Keep down this path for the next 5 years. Watch. And you get in the way, you get lined up against the wall. Republican Party, you need to wake up. We do not live in a true economic market system. We have 535 turds, minus maybe 20 good, in there, all paid for by special interests. That wealth buys power and concentrated power. You only have 535 legislators. France has 635. UK, 635. They have 1/6 of the population we do. They answer to donors. They answer to special interests. They answer to their pocketbooks. They don't answer to the American people. They buy influence. And when you buy influence, you subsidize certain industries. You tax other industries more than others. You encourage industries to go overseas with tax credits. That is not true supply and demand market capitalism. And then there are other factors that come into play, like national security issues, like rare earths. Why did the Trump administration threaten to tariff India but not China? Because they have leverage, magnets, rare earths, things you need for missile technology, military equipment, basic equipment. It's one of the reasons why Trump wants to bring it back. But that takes time. See, all these things are linked. All these things are linked. All right. Now, speaking of the politics of the elections, we'll go in. Breaking a massive development. The Florida Redistrict Committee is meeting in 17 days on redrawing the 2026 U.S. House map. Republicans stand to gain plus 5 seats, thus canceling out Gavin Newsom's Prop 50 gerrymander in California. Rise to the occasion, Florida Republicans. Deliver for MAGA and America. Well, here's the deal. Indiana's not doing it because of that state Senate leader. I think his name's Breyer. Okay, got to get on him. I don't know what's going on. California's there. The map was thrown out in Texas, so we got to see what happens there. All right, we're going to have serious problems. And then you have the voting rights case. Okay? So as of right now, I think we lose the House, but tight margins. We lose the voting rights case. We're going to lose a lot. Okay? Get moving. They're playing Smash Mouth. We need to play Smash Mouth. On the legislative side, on the campaign side. And you got to give up some of your special interests if you want this country to succeed. All right? So I just wanted to give you that. I'm kind of trying to get you how all this is kind of tied in. The economics are going into why Trump approvals numbers are going down. The foreign policy, why Trump's numbers are going down. And then the politics of the consequences of these problems. So now foreign policy is a problem. He didn't end the Ukraine war. We're still sending money there. We're talking about tomahawks. I know that's not happening, but the fact that you have it, people go, oh, why is he focused on Ukraine? I thought he was going to end the war. Ukraine's cash is running low, and Europe has no plan B. New York Times. It is noted that the EU is currently considering the possibility of financing Ukraine's military actions with the loan secured by frozen Russian assets in Belgium. However, this plan is gradually collapsing and no worthy alternatives have emerged. See, here's the problem. They estimate Ukraine needs $100 billion the next 2 to 3 years to just function, just to survive. Okay? There's 300 billion sitting in mostly European banks, and predominantly in the largest holding is the Euroclear Bank in Belgium. These globalists are dying to get that money, liquidate it to give it to Russia. The problem is Euroclear Bank and the Belgians don't want to because no foreign country will put deposits in there because you lost trust of that. So they're trying to come up with maybe ways because Ukraine has money, we're giving less. Okay. And the Europeans don't have money to give, nor do they have the weapons to give. So they don't want to do. They want to outlast Trump so the next U.S. president, hopefully Democrat, can pump it up. But Ukraine is not going to last that long regardless because they live in a fantasy upside-down universe. All right? From the Politico. Commanders force Ukrainian soldiers to stay on the front lines for weeks. This is mostly regarding to Pokrov's situation, which if you don't know has fallen. Okay? Russia is working to make defending Ukraine even more difficult. According to Ukraine Armed Forces Colonel Voloshin, the Russian army is trying to maximize the area of effect, destroying all buildings and shelters with pinpoint strikes, turning them into completely bare wastelands where it is impossible to hide, and most soldiers die during rotation. I mean, they can't even get out because of the fire control on the supply routes, which I've mentioned many times in my videos, okay? For this reason, commanders force soldiers to stay on the front lines for weeks without rotation, and this creates problems for morale. No shit. Especially as your average soldier is older, although they did drop it to under 25. But it's just minimal training. You're sitting there longer than you can. You're exhausted. You're malnourished. You're scared. And you're not even getting a lot of combat because it's mostly from the air. Russia doesn't move in those smaller units until they really even think the Ukrainians have withdrawn. Any infantryman who has once spent from 60 to 165 Ks in a trench at the front won't go there again. We do not have a doctrine on how to build a deeply echelon defense when there are very few infantrymen at the front. At the same time, the enemy disrupts your communication between the front and the rear and actively disables your drone operators at the front. This is the recipe for Russia's slow advance, the squeeze-out effect. Exactly. This is what Davis and McGregor and everybody has been saying, how the Russian military operates, unlike the globalist morons like Keane and Petraeus, who are paid by people to say, well, they didn't take that much territory. Because they're minimizing casualties and destroying the Ukrainian army. And that's what they're doing. Since the fall of Pokrovsk, on the left, Dnipro-Petrovsk region is where Donetsk meets Zaporozhye. The Russian army has liberated Nachayevka in the Dnipro-Petrovsk region, Ministry of Defense. The liberation of Segolony in the Kharkov region is also confirmed. That's up north. Russian troops have liberated the settlements of Segolony in the Kharkov region and Nachayevka in the Dnipro-Petrovsk region, the department reported. The collapse of the Zaporozhye front continues. That's it. All the gray zone is covered. Red is the newly acquired territory. It is so thin because they put everything in Pokrovsk. Those troops had to surrender in the Pokrovsk pocket. They have no reserves to send there, and the Russians are going slow. Now, it's just because it's very thin from what I understand. But they're moving village by village, small units, whatever, with that fire control. The situation on the Huliapoli direction of the Zaporozhye front continues to worsen for the armed forces of Ukraine. Russian troops are infiltrating in small groups several kilometers west of Ravno-Pilaya. Next slide. Go up north. The enemy does not stop the bloody counteroffensive near Kupiansk for 2 weeks, trying to break the encirclement ring. Again, Ukrainians encircling Kupiansk up in the north, the Kharkiv region. After Zelensky's insane orders, the armed forces of Ukraine have been continuing a creeping offensive for 14 days. Suicidal attempts to break through to Kupiansk and the Oskol River in the Kharkiv region to unblock their surrounded troops. The enemy has lost a lot of equipment and infantry, but continues to push from different locations. On the right side, the Russian army is advancing in Krasny Liman on a broad front, northern Donetsk, not too far from Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, the last two cities in Donetsk. This is reported by the summary by deep state analysts working for the GUR. Deep state is Ukrainian mapper, if you didn't know that. Russian troops continue to pressure Krasny Liman across the entire gray zone. So far, the AFU have managed to prevent rapid infiltration into Liman, but their constant pressure and numerical superiority is unmatched. we go. The Russian army liberated Segelnoye on the flank of Volchansk. This is in Kharkov region, west of Kharkiv. Okay, this city's flattened. There's nothing left. Like, usually you see the beat out high rises. No, the high rises, pancakes. Okay, in Volchansk. Assault groups of the 82nd Motorized Rifle Regiment of the North Group broke the enemy resistance and liberated the settlement of Segelnoye in the Kharkov region, right next to there. Okay. Russia has gained in the month of October 583 square kilometers, and for the month of November are going to break that number as well. The Pokrovsk pocket has fallen. The lines are going to be completely stabilized, and they will push towards Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, completely liberating the rest of the Donetsk as they continue in Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporozhye region north. They've also pushing and making gains in the Zaporozhye on the western part of Zaporozhye, along where it meets the Kherson region, driving northwest into that area. They're driving past Volchansk. They're going and driving by Kupiansk. There's no manpower. It's muddy season there. It's kind of raining. The snow's going to start the frozen ground. I expect Russia to actually, when that happens, slow down, take a pause, get situated. When the ground freezes, I say they go forward and go crazy. And I believe the imminent collapse of the Ukrainian army is coming shortly soon. I haven't said that yet because I know the strategy of the Russians, and as long as they have bodies to do it and there are people to kill, they'll just keep doing it and going like that slow steamroller. But there comes a point where they can't come there. There's just not the equipment, there's not the manpower, and then things start to open up. And then the Russians go, oh, well, I mean, there's no one between me and that village, and then that village and that city, they'll just go. And they'll go slow and steady and make sure they have the air protection like they do. It'll just go even a more rapid pace. So if Trump wants to save Ukraine, pull the plug on Ukraine, get them to the table. Now, here, they're working on a secret peace plan right now, and Trump has got to know the realities on the battlefield. Marco Rubio said end of last week, it's great. It's like, he's talking about their electric grid, how they're going to have less power for the population this winter than last winter. But he says the problem is any piece of equipment we send to Ukraine is destroyed in a week. That is almost a verbatim quote. We've known that. Prolonging this war is only for the elite's benefit in Europe, in Brussels, the Macrons, those types of people. It's a benefit for the Lindsey Grahams, the military-industrial complex here in the United States, who make lots of money for it. Also, other corporate interests that probably have loan and investments for after the war. But if they have those investments, because Russia doesn't want Ukraine. They want NATO never to come in Ukraine in their constitution. They want a barrier now that Finland, Sweden are in there in NATO, probably a line like that, defensive positions as much as possible as a buffer, because they don't want equipment, American missiles in Ukraine. I get that. No interest in Western Ukraine where real Ukrainians live. But even the polling numbers, Zelensky's approval rating is like 20% now. So this is it. It's all linked. End the war, Trump. Just pull it on Ukraine. Force them to settle it. Wipe your hands with it. Move on. Normalize relations with Russia. Make good with India. Get that front going. Gradually isolate China to their region or where they are. Get rid of the H1B visas. Continue to unlaunch antitrust and go after these big corporations that have monopolistic power. Highlighting the training people in the trades and in the community colleges. Okay, things like that. Put in programs that might give temporary tax relief. I even like a higher tax bracket, not to redistribute wealth, but to pay down the debt, which will then increase the purchase power of the dollar and might increase demand for dollars as well. All right. So, and then you can maybe get some of these approval numbers back and put the Republicans in a better situation. But it's up to the Republicans to act like America First people to continue and complete this realignment and make them permanent. This is what I said after my election video last year. Oh, my prediction video is good. I was off by one state, Maine. That was my gamble state too. And I said it is important that the Republicans pivot to this coalition and may embrace the Trump coalition, become one. They are not. And Trump's been pulled in the wrong direction. Now, the Gaza peace plan and the vote in the Security Council, that was good. The pieces are there. They're there. Okay? You just got to put them together, grow each piece, put them together, and you have the formula going forward. Okay? And then you can maybe get electoral success instead of humiliation coming in 2026 and improve our country and prevent some sort of socialist takeover 5 years from now, which is what I fear. So anyway, that's my video for today. Update. Just want to wrap that all together, how it's related to the poll numbers, where it happened, how it happened, what's going on in the scenes, what's good in the economy, what's bad in the economy, an update in the Ukraine war so you understand that position, okay? So I'll be keeping an eye out on everything and post it on my social media, which is at Patriot Planner 1 on my X and on Getter at Patriot Planner. And if you like this video, please follow, like, and share. Thanks a lot and have a great rest of the week.